Tocchet Price for Thursday, October 10th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. Extend your game night with a staycation downtown. Book a Tocchet Price exclusive rate here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Tell them Tocchet Price sent you. Some blackout dates apply based on availability, man. Tocchet alongside Blake Price. Four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches, conducting things. We got a big show coming up for you after game one, night one of season 55 for the Vancouver Canucks in the National Hockey League. Didn't it feel great to sit down 7 o'clock?
It did.
Maybe a cocktail in your hand after dinner, hockey, meaningful hockey, the excitement, the crackle, the energy.
And it felt great.
New season opening night. Gotta love it.
It felt great right till about 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And then the emotions became bewildering.
That was a really good hour. That was a damn fine 20 minutes of hockey.
They won the Stanley Cup in that hour.
They sure did.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there going, Besser may get 5 tonight. Exceed last year's opening night.
And in compounding the goodwill of the opening hour is by the end of that hour, I think the Oilers were down by 4 goals already.
There you go.
It was like a perfect hour.
Uh-huh.
And then.
Yeah, and then we just sort of stopped playing hockey.
Yeah.
Brings us to our poll. What scared you the most about last night's collapse? Defense, goaltending, Elias Pettersson, or nothing? You can vote at the Tocchet Price X and YouTube channels. I voted nothing. And if you're new to the program, he's a former post-game host, pre-game host. He likes the little pictures, the day-by-day analysis. More often than not, J-Pat sides with him. I'm more of a, give me chunks of the season, 8 games, 10 games. Let's do more of the evaluating then. We've got the bigger sample size. So I voted nothing because it is only one game, and it is the opener. And there were a bunch of new faces in the lineup. And chemistry takes some time. And it particularly takes some time when you don't play a lot of them together in the preseason. And because we all knew that Coach Tocchet and his staff were trying to implement more of a transition up-tempo system throughout the last few weeks, trying to get more chances off the rush, trying to get more shots on goal, be a little bit more of a threatening group. I thought, that could take some time, and that could come at the expense of the sound team defense that was their underpinning last year. So I'll get scared if, like, in 8 to 10 games, they are losing games like this or looking as they did for the second and third period. But right now, nada, zip.
Well, you're getting into semantics a little bit here because, and the coach is guilty of this as well, as you're going to hear here shortly as we play some of his comments, saying it's only one game and then getting to work to address what went wrong in that game is a sign that you were scared by whatever it was that you're working on, right? So, it's not drive off a bridge fear, but it's, wow, that went about as well as we expected to do, which is to say it didn't go that well. Forward and Darnay was exactly how Forward and Darnay kind of appeared it might be. Artur Silovs, with the weight of being a number one guy for a bit, looked like a guy with the weight of being a number one guy for a bit.
The market's a little too drunk on Silovs because of last year's postseason. I think that's clear. Canucks management, I'm not sure they have ever completely drank the Kool-Aid on him. We saw some of the same issues that plagued him in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year, namely the shots from distance. And again, one game, no one's going to sewer the kid.
And
but if it did come to pass that, he's not quite ready to even be an NHL backup and needs more American Hockey League seasoning, I don't think that would surprise the Canucks. And it certainly wouldn't surprise anyone in this studio.
And Tocchet saying, I'm not concerned about anything. It was only a game. And then saying, we didn't work on defense. We're going to work on defense. Well, that means you're concerned. That means that you're reacting to what happened. That scared him. The lack of defensive structure scared him. So, the truth is you can make an argument for all of them. I think, obviously, without Thatcher Demko, there's the question of goaltending. Till we see Kevin Lankinen standing on his head and being the reason for a victory, which could come sooner rather than later, I think goaltending is probably the answer.
Let's get to our top story. It's brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Yellow Dog Spirits, Foolish Winery. Shout out to John and Brad and Gil. I know they were at the game last night.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. I got a late text. Are you going to the game? I'm like, no, actually, I've committed to doing a podcast. I'm going to watch it at home. Fellas, need some notice. I'll clear my schedule for you. The Canucks blow a 3-goal lead. They lose 6-5 in overtime to the Calgary Flames on opening night. 2-point evenings for Quinn Hughes, JT Miller, Brock Besser, but Silovs stops just 20 of 26 pucks. Somehow needed a game-tying goal with the goaltender out to even get a point out of this game. That should be noted.
Crazy.
And speaking of that game-tying goal, the save by Quinn Hughes with the goaltender on the bench, the outlet pass to JT Miller, and then the shot top corner, put it in the Louvre. And in fact, put it beside Connor Zeri's winner in the Louvre, because that's a beautiful goal from the former Kamloops Blazer. I'm sure it felt good for him to score a big goal in the have a big moment in the province where he played his junior hockey.
Is there any doubt, though, when the game was gone from the Canucks with the goaltender poll, was there any doubt who everybody in the building and everybody on their couches at home, who they were hoping would get possession of the puck? Like, it's Quinn Hughes and JT Miller. As though those two guys go with, and you know what? Besser's shown the propensity for clutch performances as well. But without a doubt, this team is dragged across every finish line that it crosses by Quinn Hughes and JT Miller, who just have ice water in their veins and have the ability to step up when that moment needs it. And they did again there to get a point.
Let's hear from Coach Tocchet on the many things that went wrong last night.
Well, I mean, Calgary, they wanted it more and they played faster than us. And that's what happens. It's just kind of snowballed, right? Management of the puck, things like that. A little bit too much. I think a couple players even said it. A little too much summer hockey. A lot of battles they were winning. That's really what it comes down to. And plus we gave up 6 goals. It's a lot of goals. Think about.
And he's right there.
Yeah, well, he's right about everything there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this though. Like, there's a bunch of shots there that were not from dangerous spots.
No,
and so with the goaltending,
did you vote goaltending?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm a Silovs fan, but.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a game where, there was some deflation there, and you let in, was it 4 and 5? Certainly was 3 and 4. 3 goals on 4 shots there in the late going. I mean, that Craters is a skating group. Like, you're afraid every time they enter the blue line now. So, it was certainly an imperfect final 40 minutes. There's no question about that. But the shot totals, the high danger chances, when you look at that the other night, they were not gaudy. The Canucks defense was not as porous as the final score would let you believe.
My better half and how she sort of once bitten, twice shy, or 30 times bitten, 50 times shy, whatever it is.
Yes.
So I said, honey, you can watch the game with me? Just keep me abreast. I'll watch something else here in the other room.
Really? Wow.
Like, honey, you got to come see this. I mean, they're blowing the doors off. It's 4-1. So she settles in for the third period. Yeah. The Vancouver Canucks were 42-1-4 last year when leading after 2 periods. And while last night was was not a regulation loss, it came awfully close. The only regulation loss last year when leading after 2 periods was also the only time they blew a 3-goal lead last year. And Blake, we watched it right here in the Nation Network studio. You remember that wild, pun intended, game in Minnesota on President's Day, the matinee, 10-7, the football score.
Right.
That's the only regulation loss last year when leading after 2. It was the only time last year they blew a 3-goal lead.
Yeah, it's proof that these wild games, again, pun unintended there, do occur throughout the course of the season. It's just weird when they happen in the first game. You expect that on a random afternoon.
But really, they should happen earlier in the season,
Yeah.
right? When things aren't buttoned down from a defensive structure and system and chemistry.
Well, either from a
point of
dog,
view with all the
either in the
skaters.
dog days where you lose focus because you're in game 61 of the season, or at the outset when the systems have yet to take root, I suppose.
Yeah. I want to hear from Tocchet again because, he invoked the Boudreaux era. He's done so much work. We talked about it consistently last year. First, he had to break him down. Tell him, you're not very good. Who are we to think that we can? First, he broke them all down and let them know the real. And then he built them back up along with this system and structure that prioritizes play without the puck. Well, that all went for naught in the latter 40 minutes last night. Let's hear from Coach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to overact the first game. I mean, we were heavy in training camp of a lot of transitional and stuff, and I was a little worried about this because we got away from our identity. I didn't think we won. The play without the puck was not good. I mean, that's a year and a half ago hockey, so it's only one game. Our identity, we got to be careful here because we are a good team without the puck, and I thought we didn't protect the guts of the ice. Guys were swinging. Things like that does not win. So, but like I said, it's the first game. I got to take a little bit of the blame because I was really heavy this year in training camp of the transitional and that. And we did D-zone drills, but not as much as we did last year. Now, like I said, it's one game, so I'm not going to. Players know they got to be in certain spots. They weren't. If it's a trend for 4 or 5 games, I'd be worried. But it's one game, and we'll sharpen it up tomorrow.
Yeah,
and that's
I bet they do. I bet they do.
And that's exceptional coaching and communicating from Tocchet. I mean, it's straight out of the playbook because players play, and it's on the players. But when you can shoulder some of the blame for the loss, you shoulder some of the blame for a loss as a coach. Because and Wally was a master at this with the Lions too. When things go wrong, the examination starts with the guy in the mirror. How did I screw it up? And then you work down to the staff, and then you work down to the players, and then you present that to the staff and players, particularly if you're culpable, because you're trying to, A, it's a good process, but B, you're also trying to instill accountability. But I will, and look, it is very early, and as Coach said, if it happens for 4 or 5 more games, then he'd be worried. Right now, we're not worried, but I would like to point this out because through the summer and through preseason, and I think I asked you this a bunch of times, are you going to get caught in the middle here, trying to forge 2 identities, trying to institute this new transition game, create more shots, create more offense? And there it was. Rick said, look, we spent most of our time in training camp on transitional work, and that came at the expense of teaching or reteaching, reemphasizing the finer defensive points that made them such a successful hockey club last year. Are you hearing my mouth on this a little more?
No, I think that's a flip side. That's a negative slant of being a complete team. I don't think a coach concedes we can only be one thing. I think you try to be a complete team, and he's trying to make his team a complete team, a team that can score the big goal when they need to, a team that can defend against the other team getting the big goal when they need to. And I don't think you just say, oh, we're not going to be a complete team, so I'll just focus on the one thing. No, you strive to be better. You strive to be more complex than the group that they were a year ago. So I think they can do that. I think they were, it was a perfect circumstances for what happened to happen. Game 1, and everything you're throwing at the puck goes in the net in the first period.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're thinking, and whether it's conscious or subconscious, part of your brain's going, it's one of those nights. We're having one of those nights where everything goes in. Woo! And then all of a sudden that didn't happen anymore because Calgary brushed up on a few things in the first period intermission, and you started to cheat a little bit, and you stopped doing the fundamentals that you had learned in the second half of last year. So I think you're less likely to see that game happen in game 21 when you've had a bigger sample size of playing your systems, and that doesn't get you swept up as much as game 1 does.
I love the point you make about trying to be a complete team, because that is absolutely the gambit that is before talking in these Canucks tonight, or this season, starting last night. Last year, they were a very good team playing to their identity. But then when they got into situations, and we saw this in the Stanley Cup playoffs against the Oilers, that forced them to play outside of their identity, that was not something they were most comfortable with. And look, that can take a long time, and that requires the personnel. I saw Coach Belichick on TV last night on, I want to say, Inside the NFL, and it reminded me, the Patriots in their heyday, Tom Brady was, the GOAT, could throw it, 50 some times and pass for 400 yards, but they would play playoff games where they ran the ball 15 consecutive times because that's what the opponent presented. And they were chameleon-like. They were going to win the game in many different facets: offense, defense, special teams, what have you. They were going to tailor what they did to the opponent's weaknesses and not just sit there and say, we're this kind of team, this is how we win games, we've got to play to our identity and play to our strengths. No, sometimes you have to adjust, adapt. That is the essence of coaching.
Well,
and so
coaching.
So I understand what Tocchet is trying to do. I agree with it. I think it shows incredible introspection on his part, because there would have been a lot of guys who would want a Jack Adams trophy going, I'm the cat's meow. Look at this. Look at the record I forged last year with this group. But Tocchet understands, no, he's got to be better as well. And the whole team has got to improve in certain areas where they weren't good last year. Let me ask you this. Do they have the horses to do that, given who they're playing on the bottom two defensive pairs?
This is my opinion of coaching. Coaching can improve a team way more on the defense than it can on the offense.
Of course. The coach's number one job is make sure your players find ways that you don't lose the game. It is very hard for coaches to win a game because they're not the ones executing. All they can do is teach sound principles to diminish your chances of losing the game. That is absolutely what coaching
playing
is.
Defense, while requiring some skill, not completely devoid of skill, requires less skill to execute a defensive perfectly as opposed to good offense. That a lot of that comes down to what the superior force that you believe in gave you. So I think what he's done is applied those principles first, and now he's trying to let the God-given skill of his offensive players leak through just a little bit more often. And it's going to be like testing that faucet early on of what's the water pressure like in this brand new house that we just moved into? You got to back off on a little bit. So it's going to be a comfort zone, and there might be some speed wobbles here in October, which is why, I mean, honestly, without Thatcher Demko as your safety net, and that's what goaltending is your safety net for all these foibles. Without Demko back there, I said, until Demko gets back, if you're 500, a game above 500 in the first 5 weeks of the season, if that's how long he's gone for, that's okay.
That's probably not winning a division, but because you're probably giving up too many points in this division.
That's a dozen games. If you're, that's not the end of the world.
No, it's not. But if
you're 7-5 after a dozen games, I don't think you're not out of it.
No. Well, you're certainly not out of it, but.
I mean, to me, again, if you're okay with 1 or 2 in the division, to me, that's both those are still up for grabs. So my point is I think they're okay figuring out that throttle level a little bit. I mean, if you win tomorrow night, you're taking 3 or 4 points. Last night is a distant memory already, right? So it can change wildly here, your pace within the span of one game. But I don't think it's not a worthwhile endeavor anymore because of what happened last night. I think I hope that Tocchet doesn't overcorrect. I'm sure they are working on systems when they are on the ice now as we speak. I hope it isn't an overcorrection here. I've got the funny feeling we've got a 2-1 game tomorrow night.
No.
You know.
Well, the Canucks allowed 6 goals on home ice only once last year. That was to the New Jersey Devils. So you have to think that they're tighter defensively on Friday after working today's practice at UBC. Silovs stunk last night. There's no two ways about it. I suspect we'll see Kevin Lankinen on Friday.
I would think so.
Yeah.
You got every reason to try. Yeah.
Derek Forbort and Vincent Desharnais, that third defense pair, the one that everyone was worried about, grayed out as the worst Canucks by the analytics. And look, again, one game. I haven't seen the practice pairings. Have you? Or are they still together?
I've not seen.
Okay. Bottom line, if you want to give more run, give more run. That's perfectly reasonable. But if they continue to struggle as a duo, I think you have to consider the two things that we have talked about earlier in the week. Number one, well, one thing that we've talked about all summer, and that is, do you split it up? Do you put Myers with Forbort? Do you put Desharnais with Soucy? And frankly, Soucy and Desharnais in front of the net last night. I mean, Desharnais too aggressive with Lomberg and Soucy not aggressive enough with the tap-in goal.
Same pairings, by the way, at practice.
Yeah, okay, so that's one thing. The other is, do you bring up Brandstrom to give you a different profile of defenseman, a little bit more puck transporting, a little bit more speed, a little bit more puck comfort? So they have some outs there.
That's a back pocket thing. It's there for you. I think you go for a fortnight like this, and with this group, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Again, no sudden movements here. It's long season.
JT Miller with a Gordie Howe hat trick. And look, the hit on Rooney, unfortunate, not dirty. Puck's there. Doesn't really handle the puck, but puck should be there on his stick or in his skates. Miller hits him. It's not a dirty hit. He falls awkwardly into the boards and hits himself awkwardly.
Yeah.
You could understand. I mean, whenever a player is prone like that, needless to say, the other bench is going to be out there looking for retribution. Sure enough, it came. Sure enough, it came in the form of the monster Anthony Mantha. And I mean, Miller acquitted himself very well in that fight. Going forward, I'm not sure you want JT Miller to be spending the amount of time in the penalty box that a fight requires, because his even strength ice time was very low last night.
Imagine he breaks his hand in that fight.
Or he breaks it. Exactly. We saw that with Dakota Joshua last year in Chicago, missed damn near a quarter of the season because of an honor fight. And you probably, JT's probably fine to take that spot because, number one, as Ferraro was saying, boy, the benches were pretty chirpy last night, and it was clear that Mantha was going to do everything in his power to fight Miller. So eventually he wears you down. Okay, drop the gloves. But also because you got a big lead, right?
Yeah.
And you figure, okay, this game may not be done and dusted, but pretty good chance we're going to win it. So a terrific night for the Canucks top line center. Jake DeBrusk in his first game as a Vancouver Canuck, and really nice passing there from Pettersson and DeBrusk on that one. Besser goal. Yeah. Wow. Gorgeous. DeBrusk called it an injustice that they lost that game given Miller's effort, and later said, quote, "We need to be more like him." If you're not familiar with Jake DeBrusk, he is a really good speaker with a really big vocabulary. So he is going to perk your ears many times over the course of the season with his commentary on the game. A quite intelligent and eloquent player.
Well, he's right. For as much as the Canucks obviously stopped playing as hard as they did in the first period over the final two, over the entirety of the game, they still had 64% of the high danger chances, 57% of the regular scoring chances. They were the better team, really, in a lot of ways. And that's why my poll question vote went to goaltending is, all things being equal, as much as it was a downgrade from the first period, they weren't that bad. A couple big saves too.
Well,
They had opportunities that were turned away. They get a save, they win that game.
Yeah. So I voted nothing, but don't get me wrong. Could have gone with
Any of them are arguable. Yeah.
well, me less so on Pettersson. I didn't think Pettersson was great last night, but didn't think he was terrible either. Defense said my piece, Forbert, Desharnais, and Susie. Goaltending for sure. But the one thing that became clear to me is that Canuck Nation is not giving Petey a fresh start here after the playoff disappointment. And after he outlined a knee injury or knee tendonitis, as Tocchet had called it, in explaining why his play dropped off in the second half last year.
The groans inside the arena, Canuck Twitter were indicative of that.
And in fact, we got a regular listener, Elias, who messaged me and said, Matt, like, how was Pettersson on your poll question? Are you kidding me? Well, boy, my scope, my timeline last night on social media, watching Canucks fans react to this. And look, there's a case that's fair. He's $11.6 million now. He's one of the highest paid players in the National Hockey League. And you know, Tocchet has talked to you. You need him engaged.
Okay.
Body language, moving the feet, being dangerous.
I'll be honest, I was
making sure you're covering all your defensive assignments. More with that with Frank Corrado later in the program.
I was not on natural stat trick as I was watching the game. My eye test told me he was invisible, but he wasn't bad.
By the analytics, he was okay yesterday.
He was fourth worst amongst all players in terms of possession of the puck in Corsi 4. He was fifth worst in terms of expected goals for percentage. I mean, he is down the queue. He wasn't being caved, but he wasn't generating anything either. And again, with that price tag, like again, late in the game, there wasn't a single thought, a micro thought that came in of, guys, get Pettersson the puck, let's tie the game. My thought was get Quinn Hughes or JT Miller the puck to tie the game. And why is that?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Natural stat trick Adam, I think, is the 8th best Canuck last night. But again, you know, that's mid-pack, right? Amongst your scores.
8th best in what stat? I've got it right now. He's fourth worst. Connor Garland, Forbert, and Darren.
The overall.
Of course, he 4 percentage, yeah. At even strength, yeah.
So, look, the winger excuse is gone. The health should be good. It's one game. We'll see where we go from here with Pettersson. But there were certain things last night that I think are going to, for example, that power play. Power play was outstanding. What can you say? They scored goals. They threatened. They were dangerous. They had killer instinct. All that. So I do think it's going to work with DeBrusk. Needless to say, Sprong has offensive instincts. I'm not sure he's going to be a forever line mate there on right wing. He certainly wasn't as the game went on last night, and particularly as they were trying to protect a lead. But I think DeBrusk and Pettersson, if we're sitting here in March talking about Miller, Besser, DeBrusk, Pettersson, and I think we will be, that's going to be a very good sign. And I do think that DeBrusk is going to get his 25 or so goals. And I do think that that's going to be an upgrade in comparison to what Pettersson has played with in the past.
Got to tell you about the Freshy Fresh West Coast IPA, the most anticipated fresh hop seasonal beer in Neighborhood's history. I don't think they keep track of that, but I'm going to say that. It's a loaded IPA with some dope fresh Citra hops. People hate this read because I'm using way too many colloquial terms.
Blake thinks he's down.
The hops are from the Yakima Valley, which is local, which is great. The beer is Fat Fly and hella fresh. That's PH fat, by the way. You dig? Go get it right now. Neighborhood Brewing's Freshy Fresh West Coast IPA. There is a little bit of news from the morning practice, by the way, or I guess at this point afternoon practice. I'll believe this when I see it after one game. But Ratu, after a decent performance himself, in terms of possession stats and underlying stats, and getting on the board with his first point of the season. Stays as the third line center, but Nils Höglander drops down to the fourth line. Pius Suter returns to practice as a winger on that third line. So Suter on the left, Ratu down the middle, Garland on the right.
And Steve Baines recalled. So
him and Oman skating as extras.
Gotcha.
In the practice.
Let's hear from JT Miller. Needless to say, the fans once again serenading him alongside Al Murdoch on the PA last night. And he was tremendous, and yet, as you know, it's not going to matter to him how he played if they wind up with the loss. Here's JT.
We don't win any battles. We just played loose, like summer hockey, and this is good for us. At the end of the day, it's game one. Last year we won 8-1, and we're going to say the same thing going into the next game. We got to turn the page, but we need to learn and raise our intensity. That's a team over there that wanted to win more than we did today, and without the power play, they all played us.
How much of that is you guys still trying to adjust to maybe what Rick wants in the way of more aggressiveness?
There's no adjustment there. Not for will and compete. That shouldn't matter. That never changed.
That's an awesome answer.
Mm-hmm.
There's no adjustment on will and compete. Spot on, JT. And also the first part of the answer is great too, because if I'm in that room, then I'm spinning it that way too. Hey, this could be good for us. That's a good wake-up call. You have a hell of a practice day. You have a hell of a video session. Everyone's going to know. Okay? On your toes, better effort on Friday.
I'm never going to stop saying applauding. No, I'm going to stop saying that. I'm never going to stop applauding the turnaround for that fella right there.
Oh, no, and Tocchet was talking about it yesterday too.
Can you believe the leadership of this guy now?
No, I know.
I know. Last night would have been a tantrum night for the old JT Miller.
Oh, for sure.
Instead,
in every facet of growth and development, we've witnessed it here with JT in Vancouver.
It's tremendous. And I think that's also why he's become, without a doubt, the fan favorite, is they applaud the fact that he's turned into this guy now.
We saw his vulnerabilities. We saw his flaws. We saw him work to correct them. And we've seen the other side of the rainbow now.
And for when people outside the market still disregard him as an elite player, do they see him coming down that left side, blowing that puck past?
Oh my God. Look at that shot.
If that's Mikko Rantanen, who was great last night too, people are extolling what an elite what.
No,
JT Miller doesn't get credit for that?
Not enough people back east stay up to watch him often enough. That's the problem. But to review, he's a first-round draft pick of the Rangers with our boy, AV, as his bench boss. And as you know, with LA, much like Tocchet, there were going to be things he insisted on. And work ethic was an issue, and he finally got JT's attention. And Miller's talked about this when he said, JT, you're going to be a hell of an AHL player because you got a ton of talent, and down there you can just go and rely on talent and it'll be good enough. Well, you want to be an NHL player? Well, there are certain things. And then he goes to Tampa, and granted, it's a deep lineup. They're competing for winning cups at the time, but isn't standing out there, right? Is basically a third-line player. 13 goals, and the Canucks peel a first for him, and you, me, and a lot of other people have been proven wrong on that trade. But at the time, it was like, holy shit, betting. That is quite an overpay for a team that's got a cap issue and is actively trying to move this player off 13 goals.
Well, again, people didn't hate the player. They hated the acquisition cost. But the player was always an intriguing player, and he's blossomed. Johnny in the chat, I'm buying a Miller jersey this weekend, I've decided.
Yeah.
I think you're pretty safe. Because I honestly, and I said yesterday, eventually he's going to get old. 31, he'll be 32 by the end of the season. But I think he's going to be one of those guys, Matt, that, when he's off the age cliff and he's not the superstar producer, I think he'll be a pretty solid contributor down the lineup.
Yep, I think so too.
A la Trevor Linden,
I would agree.
I think he's going to find a niche, and you have to be okay being that different player. Trevor was okay being a different player later in his career. I think JT is going to be okay being a leader, and being responsible and getting you 20 goals and 22 assists when he's at the end of his contract. But yeah, it's just a unbelievable transformation. And that goal
Let
again.
Let me ask you. You mentioned Ratu. It was his first NHL game in 591 days. You got to go back to February 27th, 2023. He played for the Canucks just 4 minutes and 22 seconds, but had an assist against Dallas. He played just 846, but also had an assist last night. Boy, I thought we'd see him more. Just because of his slotting in the third line center role there for Suter, I thought we would see him more, but they clearly backed off his ice time a little. And outside of him getting on the score sheet, I didn't find him most notable. I know the analytics are okay, but
he had a later he had a shift late at the 16-minute mark of the third. He was out there, so I took note of that. I was like, okay, he's still going out there. So the shifts were few and far between, but he had 2 in the final 8 minutes of the game, which is maybe two more than I expected.
Yeah, fair enough.
So he's getting
he
trotted
must
out
have
there.
not played for a big stretch of the. Anyways,
Well, there was a fair amount of special teams.
Fair enough.
So
neglected to mention this yesterday, but Mark Friedman cleared waivers. He's down in the American Hockey League now. We did talk about the Canucks accruing cap space with Friedman down, although now they're spending some of it on Baines because he's got been recalled. And as our buddy Dave Hall of Canucks Army reports, you're down to 15 forwards, 11 defensemen in Abbotsford with the season opener coming up this weekend. So that's going to be an interesting jigsaw.
There's going to be a defenseman down in the ECHL that did not expect to be in the ECHL.
Yeah, I think so. And I certainly hope it's not a prospect defenseman. I think it behooves the Canucks and every AHL team to basically treat it like minor league baseball is treated. Development is paramount. You play the young prospect above the veteran, even if it's going to cost you wins and losses. I know you're trying to sell tickets. I know you're trying to ingratiate yourself with your community, in this case, Abbotsford. But I think you also you are there you exist because of the needs of the big club. And I would like to see the Kudratsevs of the world and the Elias Pettersson D. I would like to see those guys playing.
Well, Matt, on top of that,
journeyman AHLers.
This is a pretty learned fan base. I think the fans want to see Kudryavtsev. They don't want to see the AHL journeyman that you've got there. You're serving both, but you're developing your player and you're giving the fans what they want to see.
Serving is Manny Malhotra's resume, and we've seen this with AHL coaches before. They're looking as a step up, a resume builder.
But the good news for Manny is that he's been appointed there by an organization that knows him well.
Yeah,
I think they know what they're doing, what they're giving him, and I think the win-loss column, within reason, is allowed to be what it is.
And I also think Manny accepted the gig because it's a head coaching position, and he needs experience in the head coaching role.
Yeah.
Saturday's game between the Tampa Bay Lightning and Carolina Hurricanes has been postponed because of Hurricane Milton. We know the Canucks are there next Tuesday in Tampa. They're scheduled to leave Sunday. I suspect they get on that plane because I suspect the game is going to get played on Tuesday.
I would guess so.
I still think you've got some time there, right? You're still looking at 5 full days here.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the Lightning are going to have a big interest in wanting to reschedule a number of games. And I also think the league is going to look at it and go,
where do we put them?
It is amongst the longest trips in our, of our member clubs, like Vancouver to Tampa, Florida. So there's probably not a convenient time to play. Unless they pushed it back a day and played Wednesday, and then you got a back-to-back in Tampa and then in South Florida against the
I'd have to see the reasoning
champs.
For that, though. I think what you do, Matt, is
I don't know building availability at Amalie Arena there,
I think you have to take a bullet and say, listen, fans, if you can't make it to the game, we'll give you a full refund on your
Something
tickets.
like that.
But we've got to play it because we can't put it anywhere else.
Something like that.
But we understand if you can't make it, and we'll take care of you by that. I mean, it's effectively donating money to those people that need it, that would rather the money than attend. So,
yes, we all have noted the irony of a hurricane postponing a game between teams named Hurricanes and Lightning.
Yeah, it's a strange thing to name the
hockey season is here, and also got plenty else going on in the world of sports: baseball, football, soccer. Greta, great spot for all games, home and away. We will be there for Canucks Army viewing parties throughout the season. The first one is October 19th. Doors at 3 p.m. Puck drop at 4 p.m. Your minutes from the arena or the stadium. Great place for pregame, postgame. Check out the street food menu they've got. In fact, I'll be at Greta tonight, meeting a friend. And the games in the arcade. Weekly drink specials. Greta, the place to be. 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. We'll talk to Frank Corrado. He is on the road with the Montreal Canadiens out of Boston tonight. He's going to educate you. He's going to educate you on the Rasmus Andersson goal, the Canucks breakdown, and who was responsible. Many are fingering Daniel Sprong. Narrator's voice, it wasn't Daniel Sprong. Also, Frank's going to take us through what he saw from Elias Pettersson last night and the goaltending. We will talk to Rob Williams of the Daily Hive, who, of course, has a keen eye for everything new and improved in Rogers Arena and around Rogers Arena. So all that's coming up on the program today. Time to get to our Bet365 bets of the day. Blake Price, this segment proudly presented by Bet365. Where are you going?
You hate these bets, and I do too. But based on the way both these teams have played, and there have been some points for the Seahawks.
He's going under.
I'm going on the under. It's a short week. I think they're going to be very conservative in their game plan. And
well, the offensive coordinator said it. I have to run the ball more. That's on me.
Yes,
so there'll be a concerted effort for the Hawks to get Kenneth Walker involved.
Yeah. So I'm taking the under. Sorry.
And the 49ers haven't really.
No, they haven't lit the world on fire either.
No, but their running game hasn't been bad without McCaffrey. The kid Mason has done well there. Talked about him after the first week. I'm going on the same game. Yeah, the Seahawks were awful Sunday at home, and they've got issues stopping the run and along that offensive line. But I'm getting 3.5 points with a divisional home dog in primetime. And here's the other thing: Brock Purdy, the worst game of his career last year against Mike McDonald's Baltimore Ravens defense. 0 TDs, 4 interceptions, a passer rating of 42.6. The Seahawks head coach got the best of Purdy and Kyle Shanahan as defensive coordinator for the Ravens. So I'm going to buy the bounce back that McDonald's been talking about. Give me the Hawks and 3.5 tonight on Thursday Night Football. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code VANBONUS when opening that account. Frank Corrado coming up next.
In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, and this segment is powered by Square. If you run a restaurant, you're too busy for this ad. You're thinking about how to get more orders flowing, new locations opening. You need to get more customers, keep them coming back. So really, you're already thinking about Square, because Square Restaurant Tech helps more than 400,000 restaurants do all those things and more. So when you're thinking about your restaurant, think bigger and think Square. Go to squareup.com/ca/en/campaign/big INRST to see why Square is big in restaurants.
Frank Corrado probably used Square last night because he's on the road right now with the Montreal Canadiens.
You know what? I don't think I did, but I do see it everywhere. I've used it a lot. Very convenient, especially in this world where we're so cashless now. But I'm in, like, I don't know if you guys do this. I'm in Boston. Every time I come to the States, I make a point to have a little cash. Like, there's just something about.
I do too.
Ditto.
Yeah,
Ditto.
I do too. Yeah.
Even though, like, I have the U.S. credit card, I have my Canadian credit card, but there's just something about the States where I'm like, I need to have a little cash on me.
I do it too, and here's why. Number one, they're not as connected as we are.
I think that's true.
My phone often has coverage issues in the US where I just don't have the connectivity. Secondly, there's a lot more street vending, particularly around stadiums, right?
Yep.
Like you got the guys, I ran into it the other day when I was down in Seattle, ran into it in Chicago when I was there a few weeks ago. And also because my bank will give me a better rate on U.S. cash than my credit card.
So there's that too.
Fair enough. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. We kept you up later. The Canucks did, at the very least, watching whatever that was. That was a roller coaster because it looked like it was a walk and then it looked like a loss. And then there was some heroics only to be undone by Connor Zary. I mean, that was something else to start a season.
I'm not going to make this about me, okay? But I'm just going to let you into my situation last night. I have 2 twin 7-month-old kids, and I'm in Boston, and I have a king-size bed all to myself, and I'm ready to have a beautiful
sleep. Yeah.
A good
the best sleep you've had in 7 months.
And the Canucks are playing at 10 p.m. Eastern time, but really that's 10:15 because of the, it's the home opener, so everything that comes with that. And the first period took a long time because there was an unfortunate injury to Kevin Rooney, and it's 4-1 after 1. And in my head, I'm saying,
one more goal and I go to sleep, right? That's what you're thinking?
I'm thinking already. I'm like, it's just going to shut this down. Like this is over, right? And I stayed up a little longer, and I battled through to watch that. And I am so disappointed. Because I could have shut it down early and got like a solid 8 hours. And I think I still pushed 8 hours, but I didn't take full advantage of the situation thanks to the Canucks and their performance last night.
We'll ask you our poll question. Feel free to go off the board. What scared you most? Goaltending, defense, Pettersson, or nothing? Just one game, as many of them were saying in the postgame last night.
What scared me most? Goaltending scared me the most, although a close second is Pettersson. Like, is that not fair and it's only one game, but you really get to see the difference when, if Demko's playing that game, healthy Demko, he's making one of those saves that he maybe could have had, but it's not one you should have had. Like he's making those. And then Pettersson is getting paid a lot of money now to not just be fine, to not just be okay. Like you can't have the 5th highest cap hit in the NHL and just be the second best center on your team and just be okay. Like it can't happen. He's got to be a big time difference maker, and he wasn't in game 1. And, mixed with the goalie who doesn't exactly exude the same kind of confidence that Thatcher Demko does. Those are the 2 things that I would be worrying about right now. But it is early. It's game 1. I don't want to induce panic.
I think for most people, the Pettersson evaluation is a continuation though of the second half of last year, right? That's that's why people are leaping to this already, I think, right?
Yeah. He has to be, you could say he has to be more effective. He has to be somewhat dominant at times. Like he has to be someone who can take over a game. At that price tag, you have to be able to take over a game. JT Miller has shown he can do that. Quinn Hughes can do that from the back end. Like you go around the league, and not every team has a guy who can take over a game, but not every team has a guy who makes $11.6 million. So he's gotten paid. There's no issues there. There's nothing he needs to worry about. He should have had a restorative offseason, and feeling healthy and a good training camp. And like, I cannot think of one reasonable excuse as to why he would just be okay or just be fine. It can't happen for the team to repeat and build on what they did last year.
Back to your original answer, and you're not a goalie, but from what you understand, to me, tracking pucks through crowds seems like a skill that could be taught, as opposed to just being good reflexively and athletic, saves. To me, that's you're either that player or you're not. Can Archer Silovs get better at this? Because it seems to be his Achilles heel.
I think he can. Yeah, and it's funny. I have a buddy of mine who's a goalie coach in the OHL, and every time he's watching hockey and one of the player analysts starts talking about goalies and breaking them down, he texts me and he goes, "This guy has no idea what he's talking about, because all you guys just say, oh, he comes out and challenges, oh, he cuts the angle." It's like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Just say the guy made the save and he looks confident or something like that. So, but from my, like, goalie knowledge, goalies are allowed to be competitive as well, just like players are allowed to be. And I think that's where, fighting through screens and fighting through traffic and fighting to get your sight lines and, fighting to establish your ice as opposed to the player who's playing against you's ice in the crease. I think that's where the competitive nature of a goalie really stands out. And yes, it comes into play with, athletic saves and not going to quit on a puck and, the crease, side to side save, all that stuff. But that's where I think you really get to see who's the goalie that's ultra competitive. Is he willing to battle through all that stuff? And, the more you're in your zone, the more you're having to crouch down, the more you're in that, like not wall sit, but in that crouched position that, builds up the lactic acid in your legs and all that kind of stuff. So it does, that's where you're going to need to be well conditioned in order to handle all that. But that's where I think you learn it. It's how competitive are you to really battle through all that kind of stuff. And I believe that's something that can be taught and done.
It's Kevin Lankinen time.
Well, why do you have him? Like, why do you have him if you're not going to play him? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, with Demko, you could basically say it's going to be 75% of the games are going to be his starts, regardless of how the first one goes. But Silovs is not owed that. He played really well in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. But he doesn't have a body of work or a track record where it's like, we have to go back to this guy, because it's like he needs to kind of win it and earn it. Like, I feel like right now it's been his by default because Demko's not available. So he got the first crack at it. Now Lankinen gets a crack at it. And I feel like if Lankinen plays a good game, you're in the situation where you're going to ride the hot hand. Like, none of these guys are owed anything. They're both trying to make the best of a poor situation for the team, not having their number one guy available. And Lankinen will get his opportunity to see if he can put together a stretch of games. But I don't like Silovs' game last night doesn't indicate to me I got to get this guy back in the net. I want to see what the other guys got now.
Yeah. Tocchet mentioned this yesterday. It's something that I've talked about a few times here in preseason, well, through the summer, preseason, and the build up to the opener. But he took a little bit of the blame of play without the puck because so much of the training camp and preseason emphasis for him was on transition and making sure that they get a little bit more transition and rush chances into their game. How concerned are you that in the early going here, as they try and integrate that, particularly with a lot of new players, that they're trying to forge two identities and be two things at once?
That doesn't worry me as much as the goaltending and Pettersson at this point, because I've seen last year that this team can make up ground when it comes to understanding what Tocchet wants from them. Last year they were giving up all the grade A opportunities early in the year. They got better defensively. And when scoring dried up, they kind of leaned on how much better they got defensively. So that doesn't worry me. That's like, we're going to put together some good video sessions. We're going to work on it in practice, that kind of stuff. When you have the players that A, are skilled enough to execute on it, B, are smart enough to understand it, that really doesn't worry me as much. And the good thing about Tocchet is he's going to shoot you straight. He's going to tell you exactly what he's seeing, exactly what he wants, and you will go out there and do it. Like, there's there's not going to be as much gray area, although there always is. There's not going to be as much for the players. So I feel like they will have a good grasp of what he wants away from the puck. And night one, like game one, everything just feels a little weird. Even though we've had this long drawn out preseason, the guys who are actually playing together on the team, what did they play? One game as a group, if that, because JT Miller wasn't even out there. So it's like, like everything just feels a little bit foreign in game one. I don't foresee that to be an issue. I feel like that can come together relatively quickly.
Of all the new guys and good storylines or curious storylines going into game one, I mean, if anybody had a drinking game of, take a shot every time a new guy gets a point, they might not have known that they lost the game because they might have been absolutely off their chair after the first period. That's how good things went. Everybody was getting on the score sheet that you were curious about or that you wanted to see make a fine debut. Daniel Sprong helps out, and he opens his account for the Vancouver Canucks. The worry with him has been, okay, how bad defensively is he going to be that you're not going to give him that chance offensively? You give us your report card on him, because you can see the offensive skill is certainly there.
I know his ice time tailed off later in the game as well, when the game got tight, which is normal for him. That happens everywhere he plays. But for the amount of ice time that he gets, he seems to produce. And on the power play last night, that's not like he doesn't even lean into that shot. That's like a little, that's how good of a shot he has, where it's just like, that's a little flick of the wrist and he picks his corner and he finds a way to beat goaltenders. He can beat goalies clean. I thought Sprong's game was fine. I actually, it was funny last night watching Sprong and Kuzmenko play in the same game, because I watched them skate around and I'm like, they skate the same. And they have that weird stick with the white tape and the big toe curve, and they handle the puck the same. And they're both, these shoot first kind of guys. And I'm thinking, they got Kuzmenko light for way, way less money. Like, he looks exactly the same out there. So I just, I think the Sprong thing, he's in a good situation in Vancouver. I liked his game for the most part. Now, here's where Canucks Twitter, I have to interact with Canucks Twitter, because the Rasmus Andersson goal, I believe, where he pinches in off the point and he gets that shot off in the slot. I've seen a lot of people kind of allude to Sprong being at fault there. I think that's Pettersson's fault. And I'm not here to play the blame game. I just want to break down the goal how I saw it. Mm-hmm. If you take a look, Pettersson kind of points to a guy and Sprong goes, okay. So basically Pettersson saying, I'm up where you're supposed to be. So go play low, play center, and be with that guy, lower in the zone. So then what happens is DeBrusk gets beat. Okay, he goes to double up coverage on the guy Sprong is with. Rasmus Andersson dives in. Pettersson took himself right out of the middle of the ice. He saw Kevin Ball on the far side, and he starts inching his way towards him. Even if that pass were to go across to Kevin Ball, it's an outside shot. There's no screen in front, and you can flex out and try and get in that shot lane. So Pettersson just has to stand there. He just has to stand there, because if Rasmus Andersson tries diving in, he's diving right into Pettersson. You guys, you follow me? You know what I'm saying?
And Frank, it's Kevin Ball,
right?
Shooting the puck from distance. And here's the beauty. Has everybody seen these goal simulations that they have now at NHL.com?
Yes.
Have you guys seen this?
Good. They're
with
very
the little
good.
circles and the numbers, so you can see where everybody moves on the goal. And what Frank is talking about right now is perfectly illustrated if you go to the NHL.com box score and click on the game simulations, which are new this year.
Thank you, Ace. Sorry. Thank you, Ace. That is... No, Ace, hole-in-one Ace.
Okay.
But that's I think, okay, so when I see that whole thing play out, I see Sprong communicating with his centerman, trying to take initiative to be good in the defensive zone, and they get burned on the goal anyway. So anyway, it's a long roundabout way of saying I like what Daniel Sprong brings to the table for a guy that makes less than $1 million, and he clearly is showing that he's willing to communicate and get involved in the defensive zone, an area that is not his strength.
But ultimately, it's October, and I mean, I've got faith that Sprong and Pettersson can work that out, and understand each other. I hope Rick Tocchet's got the patience.
Hold on. Let me just cut you off right there. You know how you work that out? You don't make the guy who's a winger, who generally is not a great defensive player, go do your job down low. Go do it and tell him to just stand in the slot, because like that's more of a position of comfort for him. Not that I think Sprong did anything necessarily wrong on that goal, but like I said, man, you're the guy making 11.6 sheets. You got to do the dirty work, and you got to find a way to break through offensively more than he did last night. Like I didn't
keep
think
it simple,
Pettersson
right?
was
all of these things are true. All of these things are things to watch. Frank, I look at their bottom two pairs on defense, and I wonder how this is going to go for 81 more games, or at least 40 some more games if it isn't until mid-season when we're making the upgrades.
And Frank, I'm not suggesting this now, but like forward Desharnais looked like we suspected forward Desharnais would look like.
You guys called it. You guys called it last week, and I came here and I defended it and said, if they can't play 15 minutes of clean hockey, what the hell are they doing out there? But after night
Eric
one,
you know Eric Brandstrom a lot. You've seen a lot of him. Does he make that? Does that make that pairing better, do you think? And again, he's an imperfect player too.
I like Branny. I played with him in Belleville with the Sens. He's really skilled, and he's almost had to dumb it down to hang on in the NHL as long as he has. He's simplified his game. The thing about Branny is he's not your prototypical third pair defenseman, and he's almost dumbed his game down to the point where he's not what Quinn Hughes can do, as dynamic, as elusive, as offensive. So he kind of got caught somewhere in the middle now. The thing about him is, if you put him with a big guy who can do some of the gnarly stuff, you can get good usage out of Eric Brandstrom, and he can probably help. He can probably help one of those guys, whether it's Forbort or Desharnais. Although I would think it's Desharnais because Brandstrom's a left shot, Desharnais's a right shot. Like, he can kind of help him a little bit too. So I think Brandstrom will factor in sooner rather than later, just because, if you put him with a big guy, I think it insulates him and it helps out, with some puck moving. That's two guys. They struggled last night, and even
Noah Juleson doesn't demonstrably change that, right? If you put in Juleson, he's not demonstrably different than those two.
That's
guys.
the thing. Like, you're not. Yeah, Brandstrom's more skilled and better with the puck than Juleson is. Like, he would help that more. Although Juleson last year, I give him credit. Like, he went from being. Well, I think he got better with the puck as the season went on. It was noticeably different for him last year.
He looked comfortable with the puck. There was a lot of good that came out of Noah Juleson this year. And look, it could be Brandstrom Juleson going forward if these guys struggle as they did. Frank, awesome stuff. Enjoy Boston, and we'll catch up next. We're going back to Wednesday, right? We'll see you next Wednesday.
Yeah, boys. I just got a big prosciutto sandwich here from Monica's in Boston. So I've got some work to do before I shut it down.
Can't do that to me. Oh,
listen to the way he pronounces prosciutto.
Oh, no, it's eloquent.
It's happy hour on Sekeres and Price. Today's beer of the day from Yellow Dog is the Retriever Golden Ale.
Some Price from the historic Wall Center. Rob Williams is the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports Vertical, at Rob the Hockey Guy on social, and he joins us on Thursdays. We all got the black memo, I see. Funeral already after one game?
It's in honor of the seats, Matt. It's in honor of the seats.
Oh, right. Honor of
because we knew Rob was coming on. Yeah.
How are you?
Great, guys. I had to see the seats with my own eyes yesterday at practice. I took a little step down the steps there, and yeah, we got cup holders. We got cup holders.
Did you get any reviews from people sitting in them? Like we thought they were a little thin.
Looked a little thin.
You need to know people in like high society, I think, that
Yeah,
can
it's not
afford
you?
those seats. No. Yeah, okay. Some interesting quirks on the seats. I thought it was interesting because they've got the cup holders, and it looks like they can, looks like the manufacturer, I think, sent a seat, and every seat comes with a cup holder, you'd presume. There were no cup holders on the seats because the seat, it's on the back of the seat, of course, right? There was no cup holders in the back of the seat. If you're in like a maroon seat facing a black seat, right on the edge there where it changes,
Yeah.
I noticed there were no cup holders for the people in the maroon seats. I don't understand that.
That's gonna be a lot of dehydrated people on the edge there. That's a lot of dehydration. That's too bad.
But we got games to talk about now, guys.
Yes.
We do, but before we get there, I noticed the players' entrance is now adorned with the skate logo and skate colors, and of course the seats are black. Are we making a transition here, Rob? Do you think there's a chance that because of all the black decor now at Rogers Arena, we are slowly morphing back into skate as a primary logo?
No. They painted the outside of the stadium, down by the plaza. They painted that blue. I recall hearing a long time. It's a few. This information is a few years old now, but I heard that Aquilini likes blue and green, and that's the color that the team switched back to early in his ownership was blue and green. I think that's what his preference is, and I don't think that would change. I know there's dollar signs could change that, but I don't think that it's going to change the black.
Speaking of Aquilini, what do you think he thought of seats being available for this game right up to the opening faceoff?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the big one for me is that I wrote a story on this in the last week, that the prices actually dropped,
sneakily dropped,
not just for this game, but like across the board, there were games all season. We noted that you couldn't get in for $100. When seats went on sale in the summer, $109 was the cheapest seat we saw available to the general public. You can get in cheaper if you have your pack holder or in some other way, but $109 for the general public. That was the cheapest price, and I was like, wow, like that is a big jump, because a year ago it was around $60 was about the price that you could get into. And they, you go on Ticketmaster now, you can see seats for as low as about $90 now.
So it's gonna be like an airplane. You're gonna be sitting beside somebody, and the two of you will have paid different prices on Ticketmaster.
They've never really come out and said that that's what they're doing now. I thought that was a very interesting decision. I know they have like different things, sort of different rules internally where they don't undercut season ticket pricing or pack holder pricing, but the general public price was so much higher, guys, than what pack holders and season ticket members paid. That most games the cheapest price was a resale price. So that's not good for empty seats, right? Because you're just selling, the same seat is selling over and over and over. So yeah, I think there was something within the Canucks where they went, whoop, okay, maybe we pushed the prices up a little too quickly here.
So then let's ask this, Rob, because you track it. What you want to go to a Canucks game? What's the best course of action to get in for the cheapest dollar amount?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how many games you want to go to in a year. If you want to go to, if you're someone that really just 2 games a year, try to find the best price you can on Ticketmaster. Try to find a game that you get the best value for, because each game is priced differently. That Maple Leafs game, like, that's going to cost you, right? But
find it Tuesday versus Columbus or something like that, right?
Yeah, but Tuesday versus Columbus is going to be like, you kind of want that price category, but one that's like a little bit sneakily, a sneaky good one where maybe it's a Thursday against
Nashville.
Maybe Nashville or whatever team that they've maybe priced a little low. You probably want to aim for something like that. That's what you do if you're just wanting to go 1 or 2 games. Yeah. If you want to go to like I would say probably like if you want to go to like 6 or more games a year, I would say you probably want to get a quarter season ticket pack because and buy the cheapest section, because that cheapest section is the one that gets sold quickest. It's also the easiest one to offload if you want to resell it. So the opportunity to buy in the cheapest section, I think, is actually, that's probably the best way to do it economically.
All right, let's move on to the game. We'll ask you the poll. What scared you most? Goaltending, defense, Pettersson, or nothing? Or feel free to go off the board.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was an alarming game. I mean, it's just one game. Tocchet, I think, can pull back on the reins on everything, but I think it was probably goaltending, guys, because I feel like the defensive play. I think we all understand what happened there. The Canucks got up early in the game. They're playing Calgary, who's not expected to be doing much this season. They thought it was going to be an easy game. I think all the fans did as well. I think we were expecting a big blowout like last year. And then the game slowly got away from them, right? And they played a little too loose. But I think that's something that could be correctable. I think Tocchet just needs to, and I think he's going to, I think this will set off alarm bells for him. And he spoke about it too, like talking about river hockey and summer hockey and all these kinds of things, to make sure that that everyone smartens up going forward. But they also couldn't get a save, and I think the same things that we were a little bit worried about Silovs about in the past kind of reared itself again. Hey, just one game. All goalies have bad games from time to time, and the team wasn't playing amazing in front of them. But that's Thatcher, Demko, and net. The Canucks probably come away with a 4-2 win, and everyone's feeling pretty good about things and going, well, they didn't play great, but they had the lead. What do you expect?
Yeah. The Silovs kind of leaned into the criticism, the one lone criticism that people had of him. He leaned into it quite a bit. He's fine when you just need an acrobatic save out of him, isn't he? It's just his Achilles heel is one hell of an Achilles heel.
Yeah, I mean, it's that point shot that just gets through, right? It's just it's not a bullet from the point. It just sort of finds its way through. That's he has trouble tracking pucks on those long shots. I think it's I don't think there's any doubt about that. And like, analyzing goaltending is really hard. Like, the average person has trouble doing it, like, maybe unless you're a goalie yourself. And I feel like it's really interesting that, like, it's so evident to see, like, oh, another point shot. Like, remember those Bouchard, wristers in the playoffs that got by him. Like, that's very, very concerning. And if fans and media are noticing it here, you can bet that other teams and their scouting know it also. So he hasn't played a lot of games in the NHL. There hasn't been a lot of time to scout him in the past. What happens now that there's more of a book out on him? How will teams exploit that? And it's going to be fascinating to see going forward.
Fans got drama at the very least. I mean, we
exciting game.
I mean,
what's Ed Willis's book, like Never Born? Or
yeah.
I mean, that was that game, right?
Fair enough.
I mean, like look at Miller, right? Like, giving the puck away, like, for a shorthanded goal against, the big hit, fight, dramatic goal, big clapper down the wing. I mean, that was JT Miller special, I thought. But yeah, like the thing that was alarming, I think, back to your poll question, maybe I'll go like another option on that one. The thing that was alarming was that the things that we were worried about all kind of happened, right? If you were worried about Silovs and how he played and how he tracked the puck, yeah, that was a tough night. If you were worried about Elias Pettersson, he didn't have a terrible game, but it wasn't all that noticeable either, right? I think people are predicting that he's going to be like top 10 in scoring in the entire NHL. Wasn't a terribly noticeable game for him. Daniel Sprong, I mean, got the goal, great. But the issue with him is his defensive play. That that goal that in the second period that he was on for, I watched that entire sequence in the defensive zone. Like, he looked like he was absolutely lost. Like, he did not know what position. It was like his first time playing hockey. He did not know what position he was playing. I thought that was alarming. The Desharnais Forbert pairing, people were worried about that. That wasn't very good. So like, so what it was one of those things where like the things, and I think that's the concerning part. Like the things that you were maybe worried about coming into the game, they gave you more reason to worry.
Yeah, it's that's pretty astute, and now people are going to be tapping their foot on a few of those issues. So how quickly do any of those things come to pass? And it's one thing to criticize Forbert and Desharnais; they are merely Derek Forbert and Vinny Desharnais. But as you say, mediocre for Elias Pettersson, whilst not bad. That's not good enough when people look at the price tag, is it? I mean, he gets held to a different standard than Silovs, Forbert, and Desharnais.
Absolutely, and just think. I mean, think if it had gone the other way, if he'd had a great game, and him and DeBrusk looked like they'd been playing together for 5 years. This town would absolutely be buzzing about that. And there's still time on this, right? Like, I do think this is the thing with the preseason strategy where they didn't really play together. I'm not just Pettersson, DeBrusk, but just like the whole team. They didn't have a lot of reps in preseason. They kind of just, rested people and made sure people didn't get injured, that sort of thing. I held back criticism because 1 year ago they did the exact same thing, didn't look very good in preseason at all, and then the regular season started and it was guns a-blazing, right? So it worked 1 year ago, so can't criticize them too harshly. If it worked a year ago, why not do something similar again this season? But they kind of did look like a bit of a disjointed team. Like they did look like, oh, okay, who's standing where in the D zone. So yeah, I think it's a little concerning from that standpoint.
Well, it's back to concern season. October through April. If you don't have to look too far, you can find a concern. I'm more concerned with how this hit is going to go on Thursdays, Rob. We need you to be digging in here and finding out what's going on at the arena, beyond seat beat, color beat, paint beat, all the beats inside RRA. Thanks for this, my friend, and we'll catch up next week.
We got beer prices and stuff too.
Beer prices.
It's happy hour on Sekeres and Price. Today's beer of the day from Yellow Dog is the Retriever Golden Ale.
Sekeres Price from the historic Wall Center. You can text us 778-402-9680. Email live at sekeresandprice.com. All of it goes to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips.
It's going to be great.
Season is here. What better way to kick it off than at Greta, the first Canucks Army watch party presented by Fountain Tire, going down Saturday, October 19th at our home for the fans, Greta Bar. Doors at 3. Tickets going fast. Hit up nationgear.ca before they're gone. We've got prizes, trivia, and more, and we're doing it in support of the BC Mental Health Foundation. Don't miss out on this big kickoff party and be there all season long with us at Greta, nationgear.ca to reserve your spot.
And we could be a little bit competitive maybe with Canucks Army and such. If you go to nationgear.ca and buy S&P merch, the more people adorned in S&P merch versus Canucks, we can get a little flex.
I'll tell you what, you wear an S&P hat or shirt, I'll buy you a beer there.
Whoa!
On Saturday.
How about that, apples?
October 19th. Jarrell Broxton is progressing at BC Lions camp. The star left tackle for the Leos has gone from limited to full practice. Adrian Green, the Canadian defensive back, he's regressing, limited to no practice. In Regina Saturday. Got to win if you want to host a playoff game. The forecast there, I looked into this because now is the time of year, Blake, when you look into the forecast, especially in Regina. Mostly clear, 20% chance of rain, temperature dropping from a high of about 11 degrees at kickoff. So bring your woolies. Could be chilly by the end of the night, particularly if you get some wind, and you almost always get wind in Regina. Is Saskatoon like Regina? Do you get tons of wind?
You can. I wouldn't say
Not
it's like
quite
Regina.
as-
No,
okay.
no. the lower parts.
I can remember sitting with Cal Murphy, the late great Cal Murphy, Vancouverite, of course, one time. Coach, and we were sitting on the bench watching pregame, watching the punter and kicker warm up. And the special teams coach walked up and said, Cal, I'm not sure there's even the hint of a breeze. How many times have you seen this in your life at Taylor Field? He was back at the old stadium. He goes, not many. He goes, if you're a visiting punter or kicker and you get this day in Regina, hey, that's about as good as it goes. Winnipeg can clinch the West with a win in Toronto tomorrow. So, much like the Lions experience last Friday when they played after the Bombers and watched Winnipeg win and eliminate their chances of winning the West, they can do the same thing to the Riders with a victory against the Argos. Whitecaps, the big one, Sunday 4:30 p.m. BC Place, the makeup game against LAFC. Blake Price and Paul Dolan on the call for Apple season pass. What can you tell me about that?
Well, I can't remember if I said it yesterday, but Adiro Campo did not get called to Columbia, so it's just there's the 6 guys that are missing, 4 for LAFC. And also a little interesting note, after a terrible spitting incident last week in the RSL match, Brian Vera has been suspended for 3 matches. That'll include the decision day match against the Whitecaps and the first round of the playoffs. Or the second round officially, the best of 3, which could be RSL Vancouver as well. So that, he is a big part of their starting 11. Mm-hmm. He's a etched in stone a member of the starting 11 for RSL. So interesting to note, just in terms of the long-term forecast for the Whitecaps, is they'll get a diluted RSL team.
He spit on a player?
Yes. On former Whitecap Michael Boxall.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They take spitting seriously in MLS. That's a big suspension.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you think of it, 3 games. I mean, that's
and
almost,
a playoff. Yeah, and a decision
playoff game. Yeah, no, but they play 34 games. 3 games. It's what, 8-9% of the season.
Yeah.
Hurricane Milton. And we talked about this and how it may affect the Tampa Bay Lightning. It blows through the Tampa St. Pete area and it takes the top off the Tropicana Field, the home of the Tampa Bay Rays of Major League Baseball. The roof is just gone. It was supposed to be a staging area, shelter for frontline workers. There were all sorts of cots set up.
You see the drone footage and you can see, like, there were supposed to be people where there's debris lying.
People were supposed to make that their home base. Here's what I don't understand, because got a lot of friends in Florida, a lot of people who have winter places there. That roof was a tarp roof. Like, it's not like the Superdome in Louisiana that had a more permanent concrete roof. This was a tarp roof. They know hurricanes in Florida. How did they not put 2 and 2 together and realize, wait a second, the roof of this puppy could be compromised?
And we've seen not even hurricanes. We've just seen gale force winds damage roofs in the soft top domes.
Georgia Dome in Atlanta had some big problems with that when it was in existence. I can remember one year in the NCAA's March Madness where the roof blew a hole and there was water pouring in.
I think Minnesota had that as well.
Metrodome, yeah.
So, like, that should have been predictable.
Yeah. So now the question, is it going to be an outdoor stadium going forward? Because you look at the drone shots from the top of it, it seems like you might just be better off disassembling.
Yes.
Yeah. Can it be repaired in time for the Rays' first homestand next season, which starts March 27th? Are they going to have to play somewhere else until that facility is back up?
That's my guess.
And then, and look, everybody, if you've listened to the show long enough, I think you're well aware, Blake and I know where sports slots and places into greater society. And there's a lot more people going through a lot more hardship with this weather. I was going to say hurricanes, but of course it's been 2 systems that have hit the
and
American
storm surges.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
But I'm also interested to see how the spring training facilities on Florida's West Coast held up, because of course they'll get going a month earlier than the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Blue Jays in Dunedin, You got the Phillies in Clearwater. You got the Yankees in Tampa, the Pirates in Bradenton, the Orioles in Sarasota, the Rays in Port Charlotte, and then the Red Sox and the Twins in Fort Myers. You've got 8 baseball teams, nearly a quarter of the league, whose spring training facilities are in those parts as well. So there could be all sorts of changes coming up here to 2025 Major League Baseball spring training and maybe even regular season schedules because of what that storm did to those communities.
What I don't get when I see all of the destruction and yes, death as well. And for some people, I guess there's just no other option. They don't have the wherewithal, the ability to move.
Well,
but these people that they invest in their homes, they put on additions and all, they invest in their homes.
Yeah, for sure.
Only to roll the dice every fall that a natural disaster is going to come and take it all away.
It's even worse than that, Blake. You'll remember there was a residential tower in South Florida that collapsed a couple of years ago.
Without a storm.
And via that, what they determined is that a lot of those towers were built and would not be sanctioned today. And the repairs on those towers would be at such a cost that it would be more expensive for the individual condo owners there, not to mention the fact you can't get insurance against hurricane for a lot of them. So, wow, if you've got coastal property in Florida, usually property enhances in value. It's typically a good investment, but I think there's going to be a lot of people left in the lurch there.
Yeah,
on coastal Florida. Meanwhile, on the field, New York, I like the Phillies and Orioles to go to the World Series. What do I know? The Mets advanced. They beat the Phillies, the first ever postseason series victory at Citi Field. It was quite a party. The grand slam from Francisco Lindor. Boy, what a player he is. The Dodgers forced Game 5. So we'll get a redux of that venom we saw in Game 2 between the Padres players and the Dodgers faithful. And the Tigers and Yankees can advance today. Have you caught any of Bob Costas doing the Yankees-Royals series? He's getting a lot of heat on social.
I saw that. That's all I saw.
Some people think he wants the Yankees to win because of the big market factor. Some just think he's over the head of audiences now. I mean, I quite like him. I think he's one of the great, if not the best, sportscaster ever. But he's getting a lot of heat. I like Ron Darling too on the color. I've always liked Ron Darling.
Does it feel like the Mets have been to 2 World Series in the last 20 years?
Well, there's the Subway Series against the Yankees.
Yeah, that's 2000.
What's the other one?
And I jettisoned this one, certainly. The Royals in 2015.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Since when did the Royals win a World Series in 2015?
No, they beat the Blue Jays that year in the ALCS.
I've completely jettisoned that from my memory.
Screwed it up in the bottom of the night. They had runners in scoring position. They couldn't get one home.
The Mets are mostly pathetic, but then every 10 years they make it to a World Series.
An incredible turnaround there this year. I mean, they were looking god awful in May and made some changes, and now they're off to the NLCS. And of course, they have celebrity fans. I saw Seinfeld there yesterday.
But there's teams that do a lot worse than every 12 years making it to a World Series.
No,
that's not that terrible.
They certainly spend enough.
And
I will say this:
1973 World Series, nothing. They don't make the playoffs till 86. Go back to a World Series
and win it. One of the great World Series. And I will say this: not that I cheer for either of the teams, but I do think the baseball playoffs are better when you get those New York crowds.
Yes.
Either in Queens or in the Bronx.
I don't mind David versus Goliath, but there needs to be a Goliath.
Different about a New York crowd. And if you've ever been to one, whether it's a sporting venue or a concert, they're not shy.
Well, when they sense that success could be near, their eyes turn glowing red.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And hey, we'll end on this one. At Bob Dylan, I ran into one of the Buffalo Sabres in the elevator at the Prague Hotel. This was last weekend during the NHL's kickoff series. They were in town to play the New Jersey Devils. He invited me to the game, but I was performing that night. I learned so many things within this tweet. Number one, that 83-year-old Bob Dylan is still performing
in Eastern Europe.
Of all places?
Yeah.
Like, that's traveling. I learned that a 20 or 30-something hockey player recognized Bob Dylan and had the courage to speak to Bob Dylan because, Bob's not starting that conversation.
Yeah.
And then it also sounds like Bob Dylan, native of Minnesota, state of hockey, sounds like he likes him some pucks. Sounds like he considered going to the game. Otherwise, I don't know why he would tweet that.
It's amazing that he was recognized because I was depressed the other day at a Whitecaps game. In the pregame, or maybe halftime, they were having some fun and playing old music, quote unquote old music, and seeing if the Whitecaps players could identify who it was. The 2000 celebrating the 2000 who the artist was, and it was "Hey Ya" by Outkast.
Oh my! And
it was at best 50-50, and there were some players that were just like no idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's considered like,
and with all due respect to Outkast, and I quite like the band going back to when they did pure rap before,
pop rap,
this is Bob Dylan, man. Like, this is maybe the greatest American songwriter of all time with a 60-some-year career. That's a different level of fame than Big Boy. And
yes and no, he never lived in the digital age, though, where your name and likeness is
he's living there. It's just,
he doesn't promote it there. Yeah,
it's not the height of his popularity. Incidentally, Bob Dylan is followed by 437,000 accounts, and he follows no one.
He follows no one.
He follows no one. Zero. It is purely a one-way account for Bob Dylan on X.
Wow.
Poll question results from Wednesday. Do you have Stanley Cup expectations for the Canucks? Yes or no? What did the people say, Blake?
They said no.
They said yes.
Oh,
57%.
57.
Dustin, yes, but as a fan, I always have hope until there's no chance. Seems a little more realistic this year, though. Sheldon, do I think they have a capability to win the Stanley Cup? Yes. Do I expect them to? Hell no. There's 32 teams in the league. Nobody should be expecting a cup. Riles.
Good answer.
I've cheered for this team long enough to never expect them to win anything. I know better, hoping they can make the playoffs, and let's see what happens. And then Al says, why not? I think we saw some evidence last night, Al. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program and beyond. In clarification, Nils Höglander will be a UFA after the 27-28 season. Cap Wages has that wrong. So it's 4 more years of club control with Höglander this year and 3 more the 3-year.
He meets both of their criteria. He will be 27. He'll also have 7 accrued seasons. So
thank you for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Of course, we're live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And please do support the community sponsors you hear us telling you about. Keep it local.
In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey set up as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.